Pastor Joel Osteen is back in the news. Guess why? Joel Osteen has spent over 20 years telling millions of people that God wants them to prosper. But behind the soft smile and the best-selling books, the numbers keep telling a very different story. A $10.5 million mansion. A net worth now estimated at over $100 million. A church pulling in nearly $90 million a year while giving back barely 1% to charity. And in early 2026, things got louder than ever. A leaked internal budget surfaced online in January. Then in April, Osteen sat down with Logan Paul on the Impulsive podcast and told the world he has no yachts, no jets, and no Ferrari. The internet promptly brought the receipts. So where does that leave us? The deeper this story goes, the stranger it gets. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963 in Houston, Texas. And from the very start, his life was tied to something much bigger than an ordinary household. His father, John Osteen, had left the Southern Baptist tradition after a charismatic experience in 1958 and founded Lakewood Church a year later in a converted feed store on Houston's east side with just 234 seats. Joel grew up as one of 6 children inside the rhythm of church life. Ministry was part of breakfast, part of dinner, part of every ordinary conversation. Church was never a place Joel visited. It was the atmosphere around him. He attended Humble High School in Texas, a regular public school rather than a private Christian academy, which likely shaped the accessible tone he would later become known for. After graduating in 1981, he headed to Oral Roberts University to study radio and television communications, but barely lasted one semester before dropping out in 1982 and returning to Houston to work in Lakewood's media department. He never earned a college degree. He never attended seminary. He never received formal theological training. In 1992, he was privately ordained by a 6-member Lakewood board in a quiet ceremony. So the man who would eventually become one of the most recognized preachers in America entered ministry without the credentials most people would expect. For the next 17 years, from 1982 to 1999, Joel stayed almost completely out of sight. He worked behind cameras, managed television production, shaped how his father appeared on screen, and even helped choose John Osteen's suits and ties. His father reportedly urged him to preach again and again, and again and again Joel refused. He seemed comfortable controlling the image without becoming it. Then everything changed at once. In January 1999, John Osteen collapsed with kidney failure and asked Joel to preach one Sunday service. Joel had never delivered a public sermon before. He spent a full week preparing for that single message. Days later, on January 23, 1999, John Osteen died of heart failure. The church elders faced a decision. They could find an experienced pastor with theological training and years of preaching behind him. Or they could hand leadership to the founder's son, a man whose entire working life had been spent in production. They chose Joel. Lakewood had around 6,000 members at the time. What helped him almost immediately was the very thing that could have ruined him. Joel did not act like a polished authority figure. He admitted he had never felt drawn to preaching. That honesty connected with people. Many churchgoers were already tired of distant television preachers who seemed too practiced and too perfect. Joel arrived with visible nerves, a quiet style, and an emotional openness that made him feel reachable. And drawing on 17 years of media experience, he began reshaping how the church looked and felt. He upgraded the lighting, repositioned cameras, refreshed the stage design, and changed the music presentation. Services moved closer to a live broadcast environment, and that was no accident. The results were staggering. From 6,000 weekly attendees in 1999, Lakewood climbed to 12,000 within a year, then 25,000 by 2004, and eventually over 52,000 by 2016. When those crowds outgrew every available space, Joel negotiated a 30-year lease on the Compaq Center, the 16,000-seat arena once used by the Houston Rockets, paying the city $1.88 million up front. The renovation took 15 months and cost between $75 million and $95 million. When it opened in July 2005, the finished space featured a giant rotating globe at the entrance, concert-style lighting and sound, 2 massive jumbotron screens, a bookstore, and a food court. Critics saw a stadium dressed in church language. By then, Joel Osteen had become more than a local pastor. His sermons were broadcast into more than 100 countries. Nielsen Media Research reported that he was reaching an estimated 7 million Americans weekly and over 20 million each month. And what drew the strongest reactions was not just the size of the audience. It was the tone. Joel openly said on CBS Sunday Morning that he did not focus on sin, hell, or repentance because people already felt beaten down enough. That approach made him deeply popular with many listeners and deeply troubling to many pastors. His publishing career exploded alongside his platform. In October 2004, he released Your Best Life Now, which debuted at #1 on the New York Times self-help bestseller list rather than the religion list. Within 3 months, it had sold 500,000 copies. Over time, estimates placed royalties from that title alone at more than $70 million. His follow-up, Become a Better You, debuted at #1 on the same list in October 2007. Reports have suggested that the advance for one of his books exceeded $13 million, a figure larger than what the estate of Pope John Paul II reportedly received for a book deal. In 2005, Joel stopped taking a salary from Lakewood and said publicly that book income was covering his needs. That statement became one of the most discussed parts of his public image, and it came roaring back to life in April 2026. Osteen appeared on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast and was asked directly about the Bentleys, the jets, the yachts, and the fleet of cars that circulate in stories about him online. His response was definitive. "People like to make up stuff," he said, "but I don't think I've ever sat in a Ferrari." He told Logan Paul he has never owned a jet, never owned a yacht, and has not drawn a salary from Lakewood for most of his 26 years in the role. "I've been blessed with book sales and media and other things," he said, "so I don't have to take a salary." The internet did not receive that calmly. Within hours, images of his $10.5 million River Oaks estate were circulating again. The net worth figure of $100 million, reported by financial outlets as recently as April 2026, reappeared across social media. Critics noted the precision of saying no jets while still acknowledging extraordinary wealth built on a platform sustained by the donations of working and middle-income families. The April podcast was not the only thing reigniting attention in 2026. In January of that year, a YouTube investigation claimed to present a leaked internal Lakewood budget covering the 2024 to 2025 period. According to the document shown in the video, the church brought in $89.7 million in income. Of that, roughly $25 million reportedly went to television production and media, and around $31 million went to staging, event logistics, and church operations. Together, those categories accounted for well over 60% of total income. The same report claimed that only about 1.5% went to direct charitable giving. That would mean less than $1.50 out of every $100 donated actually reached people in need. The reason a leaked budget draws this level of attention has everything to do with a legal gap that most donors do not fully understand. In the United States, churches are automatically tax-exempt and typically do not have to file Form 990, the detailed annual disclosure required from most other major nonprofits. That means Lakewood has no legal obligation to publish a full line-by-line breakdown of how its tens of millions of dollars are spent each year. Financial watchdog Ministry Watch gave Lakewood a donor confidence score of just 3 out of 100, along with an F grade for financial transparency, reflecting serious concerns about disclosure practices. When that grade was first reported, it landed hard. When the leaked budget surfaced in January 2026, it landed even harder. Suspicion grows fastest in the spaces where transparency is missing, and at Lakewood, those spaces have consistently been large. Those transparency questions have never fully separated from the other controversies that have followed this church. In 2014, $600,000 in cash and checks representing weekend offerings was stolen from a church safe. No arrest ever followed. Then in November 2021, a plumber doing routine repair work discovered nearly 500 envelopes stuffed with cash and checks hidden behind a toilet inside a church wall. The dates on the checks and the account numbers matched the 2014 theft. Someone with intimate knowledge of the building had hidden the stolen money inside it. As of 2026, no arrest has ever been made. The case remains unsolved. There was also the Hurricane Harvey episode that still follows Joel Osteen's name everywhere it goes. When the storm made landfall in August 2017 and dropped more than 50 inches of rain on Houston, displacing over 30,000 people and killing 68, Lakewood's initial Facebook post said the building was inaccessible due to flooding. Social media users quickly posted photos and videos from outside the church showing parking lots and streets with little to no flooding. Images from inside the 16,000-seat arena showed the space dry and intact. The church eventually opened as a shelter on Tuesday, August 29, 4 days after Harvey hit. Joel appeared in person to help distribute supplies. Lakewood later raised more than $5 million for Harvey recovery, helped over 1,150 families return to their homes, and logged more than 70,000 volunteer hours. In August 2018, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner declared a Lakewood Church Day. But public memory rarely begins where the cleanup ends. Those first 48 hours attached themselves to Joel Osteen's image in a way that no amount of relief work has fully dissolved. During the pandemic, Lakewood applied for and was approved for $4.4 million in federal Paycheck Protection Program funding in July 2020, one of the 3 largest PPP loans awarded in the Houston area that summer. The church said the funds supported roughly 350 to 368 employees during the period when in-person services were suspended. When the loan became widely known in December 2020, public reaction was swift and harsh. Critics pointed to Lakewood's $90 million annual budget, its global media reach, and Joel Osteen's own considerable wealth and asked why a program meant for small businesses on the edge of survival was reaching one of the most resourced religious institutions in the country. Lakewood repaid the full $4.4 million in October 2021, but many observers saw the repayment less as a moral resolution and more as an attempt to contain a reputational crisis. Meanwhile, theological critics have not gone quiet either. In 2025, Westminster Seminary, California published an article calling Osteen's theology a heresy. Country singer John Rich appeared on the Sean Ryan Show podcast that same year and accused Osteen of deliberately avoiding hard biblical subjects like hell, the end times, and the altar call because he did not want to make his congregation uncomfortable or harm book sales. Rich contrasted him directly with Billy Graham and described Osteen's operation as a motivational speaking franchise dressed up as a church. The interview spread quickly online. To longtime critics, it put years of frustration into plain language.